Hello! Today we're going to have a look at how to make a flame graph, a new feature in Xdebug 3.3. Flame graphs are an interesting way of showing where an application spends a lot of time. Let's dive straight in. For this demo I will be using Xdebug's own website, which I run locally at port 9874. First of all, we need to configure Xdebug to make our flame graphs. We do that in a configuration file. With php --ini we can find out which ones we use. In this case I have a specific Xdebug ini file called zzzxdebug.ini. Flame graphs are part of Xdebug's tracing functionality, which we need to enable. The tracing functionality supports multiple formats. The flame graph is number 3, so we need to set that as well. By default, Xdebug Tracer will put files into the tmp directory. That is fine. By default, the tracer will use a hash of the current working directory to create a trace file name. But we want to do this for multiple locations, so we need to change the setting. You do that with the Xdebug trace output name setting. We start all files with trace dot, and then we use %R to configure to use the URI. By default, all file names will also be expanded by .xt. We don't have to configure that. Now we can save this and start our web server. To initiate the tracer, I use Xdebug Helper again, a browser extension available for Chrome, Firefox and other browsers. I click on the debug icon and then on trace. I can now reload the page. And for a good measure, I will also click on the documentation link. We can now examine the temp directory for created trace files. And here you can see the files that have been created. Because we go through our PHP router process, there will also be links for images and fonts, etc. The important ones are, however, our root directory as well as the documentation page. Let me open up the last one. This is really hard to read, and this is also not the final step. In order to create our flame graphs, we need to pass this through a Perl script. Xdebug automatically compresses trace files. So when we pass it into the flame graph, we need to unzip it on the fly. In order to use the tool, you'll have to use zcat because Xdebug compresses trace files by demand, and the flame graph tool does not understand that. You pipe the contents to the tool. I will provide a link to the tool in the description below. The output of this should be redirected to a file because it creates a SVG file. This SVG file you can then open in a browser. From this flame graph you can now see what took the most amount of time. The stack shows how deep the code goes, and interestingly, for most of it you'll see that a lot of time is taken up by Composer, as well as requiring other files. You can dive in by clicking on specific bits. For example, I'll click on my template default controller. This then opens it up for further information. You can reset the zoom and click on other things as well. Of course, the Xdebug website is particularly quite simple. In your application, it will probably show like a lot more code. There's some extra information in the bottom, such as how much time it took and how much time it was for the whole length of the script. Once you're done, please don't forget to turn off the tracer. Otherwise your hard drive will fill up with a lot of information. This new flame graph output format is part of Xdebug 3.3. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.